In this video, we're going to discuss one simple little rule that you should definitely know if you're claiming Social Security at age 62. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
I've often said that people go through a series of firsts when they retire, and even the smartest of retirees miss something in their model when they're modeling something on a spreadsheet or building a list. Still better than winging it, but oftentimes when you model something out, if one element goes wrong, everything else goes wrong within that model. Just last month, I received a panicked email from a viewer who unfortunately was in a situation that is all too familiar. She had left her place of employment at age 62, and she decided to collect Social Security. About 2 months into her retirement, her employer called her up and said, "Listen, we can't live without you in this role. What if we pay you $45,000 for 6 months worth of work just until we find a replacement? Would you be willing to do that?" To which she said, sure. She had no idea that this would create a massive problem with Social Security. And frankly, the statistics show that 40% of people who retire go back to work at least part-time within 5 years of retiring. Yet, most have no clue about the earnings restrictions that could cost them thousands of dollars. And by the way, if you work with a financial advisor, even financial advisors struggle with these unknowns. They can't model out a return to work. They can model out inflation, healthcare costs, volatility in the market, but a return to work doesn't fit neatly into the model because you can't predict when your services might suddenly be in high demand, or you have a family member who's in trouble and you might need to go back to work to help support them while they work their way out of trouble. These real-life curveballs are what catch even the most prepared retiree off guard. And just being completely candid here, what if you were laid off at age 62? You thought that the market wasn't conducive and your old boss left the company that you were working for, went to go work for the competitor and says to the competitor, "Hey, I know someone who can do that exact job." And after 6 months and 5 Social Security payments, you go to work for the competitor. Now you've got a problem. You've got a new car sitting in the driveway, and you can only earn so much money. And the earnings limit is a very real issue with Social Security. And this is what the earnings limit is. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about here. If this isn't your full retirement age year, meaning the calendar year that you reach full retirement age, then you can earn up to $23,400. For every $2 over that limit, you have to give $1 back to the SSA. If this is your full retirement age year, then you can earn $62,160. For every $3 over that limit, you have to give $1 back to the SSA. This is after you start receiving Social Security, of course. So at age 62, collecting Social Security and starting a new job, you're highly likely to breach this limit, and you may even have to give back everything. And to be super clear, earnings means earnings from work or self-employment. It doesn't mean 401k distributions. It doesn't mean annuity payments. It doesn't mean dividends. It doesn't mean anything except for work and self-employment. So if you're earning $30,000 from dividends, you're good. If you're earning $30,000 from a consulting gig, you've got a problem. And these limits were put in place, by the way, because Social Security's original purpose was to act as a safety net for people who couldn't work. The SSA figured that if you were still working, well, then you didn't need Social Security, at least a portion of your Social Security. And if you've returned funds to the SSA or you've notified them that you're working and to withhold funds, then these funds aren't lost forever. They're added to your base and they're given to you in the form of a higher Social Security payment at full retirement age. And just to complete this thought, and then we'll talk about the solution, what do people typically do when they receive a Social Security payment and income from work? Do you think that they save all of their Social Security payment? Usually not. They usually spend part or all of it on something else because now they feel very confident that they can afford a lot of the finer things in life that they couldn't afford before. So 6 or 9 months later, they get a bill in the mail from the SSA saying, "You owe us $15,000. They look out in the driveway, look at their new car and say, "Oh shoot, what do I do now?" The other reason this might happen isn't an unexpected job at all. It's just that retirement is not what they expected. They realize that their friends are still working, for example, or that their spouse is still working. And so they're bored. And so they want to go do something. So they go back to work and they breach the limit again. Or they didn't read the fine print in the survivor benefit, which states that the survivor benefit is based on the size of the deceased Social Security payment. Now the survivor is locked in at the lower payment, and they're worried about that in case something happens to them. Or maybe they just found new income from a hobby, income from a part-time job. Whatever that is, it's large enough to cross that threshold, and now they owe money to the SSA. Whatever their reason, there are two rules that can save them, and I'm pretty confident the majority of people watching this video might not know of either or at least one of these. The first is a request to withdraw their application from Social Security. This allows them to essentially unfile for their Social Security payment. But you got to get a few things right here, otherwise it won't work. The first is that you only get to do this once in a lifetime. So that person can get the new job, unfile, but if they leave that job in 6 months or 12 months and refile for Social Security, even if they get another job, they can't unfile again. The second is that they only have 12 months to do this. So if in the 13th month they decide that they want to unfile, well, they can't. They've exceeded the 12-month mark. And the last point, and this is usually the deal breaker for folks, is that if you decide you want to unfile, you need to return all of the funds back to the SSA that you received from the SSA. Now, I had someone on a live stream comment, can't I just receive a lower Social Security payment that would put an undue financial burden on me? The answer is unfortunately not. You have to give it all back. Now, here's an important strategy if you're deciding to do this. It's better to do it at the beginning of the year and as soon as possible, because sometimes it takes 60, maybe even 90 days to execute, and there are tax implications that you need to think about. You may need to amend the previous year's tax return if your Social Security payment was taxed, for example. This could also affect your Medicare Part B premium if you filed for Social Security around age 65 and you were making income-related payments to Medicare. In order to do this, you need to fill out Form SSA 521. I'll include a link in the description below, and I'll also remind you at the end so that you don't need to stop the video. Now, the second option is to suspend your Social Security payment at full retirement age. Now, this is tricky, so let me explain what the issues are, because there's a lot of urban lore around this one. And if you get this wrong, you're going to be shocked at the size of your payment. The Social Security suspension strategy became a lot more limited after 2016, but historically, there used to be something called file and suspend, where someone would file for their own Social Security, which would allow their spouse to file for the spousal benefit and then immediately suspend their Social Security while the spousal benefit continued on. The SSA figured that this wasn't a good idea, and they canceled the loophole. So this is the suspension strategy that's left for you. If you file for Social Security early, let's use age 62. That means that your payment is approximately 70% of the payment you would receive at full retirement age. That is locked in, unless you unfile like we just talked about. But assuming you don't unfile, your 70% is locked in. Now, once you reach full retirement age, let's say age 67, then you can voluntarily suspend your Social Security payment. But this is the urban lore about this point. If you had not filed for Social Security, your payment at full retirement age would have been 100%, not 70%. And at 68, it would have been 108%. At 69, it would have been 116%. And at age 70, it would have been 124%. So it went up 8% per year, a total of 24% from full retirement age until age 70, at which point you have to take it. It can't go up anymore. The urban lore out there is that you can take a reduced payment at age 62, say 70%, and then suspend it at age 67 and still end up with 124%. And if you follow the rationale behind this, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but if you squint, maybe it does. You're already getting a smaller payment, so therefore, why should you be penalized by having a reduced payment from full retirement age on? Well, you were getting no payment until full retirement age in option 2. So if you take Social Security at age 62, you get $1,400. Then if you voluntarily suspend it at age 67 to age 70, your $1,400 is multiplied times 1.24%, and that's $1,736, not $2,480. Now, if you're a Social Security geek like me, there's one other aspect that you might have figured out, and that is, let's say that you file for Social Security at age 62 and you continue to work, and you inform them that you're working and not to send you a Social Security payment. What will your Social Security payment be at full retirement age? Well, it'll be 100% because you've never received your Social Security payment. The challenge with this strategy is that a lot of times the SSA gets it wrong because they have to now manually calculate what you're supposed to receive at full retirement age. So I wouldn't recommend it, but it's something out there just to play with in your mind anyway. Before making any decisions about these strategies, I highly recommend that you make an appointment with the SSA and discuss it with them. Make sure that you get the information in writing from them. That way you can refer to the notes, because the SSA does keep notes, and it will keep things streamlined in the event you need to refer back to that discussion at a later point. As a reminder, don't forget to go to the description and click on the link to access SSA Form 521. Also, if you like this video, check out that video, 10 ways you can lose your Social Security payment instantly. This is Jeff Schmidt, and I will see you in that video right there.